Welcome. Boop, 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 boop. Nice countdown. I'm getting into the music there. It's a bit repetitive. Anyway, welcome to YouTooSpain Live. This week I will be joined by Ciaran O'Toole from Insure to answer your questions all about private health care. Everything you need to know about it will be right here on this show. So join us with questions and comments on the live chat over there or down there, depending on which device you're on, or in the comments below if you're watching afterwards, because you are a part of this too. You are very welcome to YouTooSpain. Let's do the groovy theme. Here it comes. And as usual, there's a gap where I'm just sitting nodding my head to this while I wait for it to finish. And yes, it was very groovy. I'm in the groove. Are you in the groove this morning, everyone? Speaking of groovy, let's welcome my expert guest for today. It's the delightful Ciaran O'Toole from Insure. Good morning, Ciaran.
Morning, Scats. How are you? Thanks so much for having me on the call today. Looking forward to it, and thanks everyone for joining us today. Hope to provide very useful and helpful information regarding Spanish health insurance. So, any questions at all? Be happy to help you today. Thank you.
Brilliant. It's great to have you with us. Yes, and I'm feeling very well. Are you too?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, no complaints.
Good. Where are you based, by the way? I keep forgetting where you're.
Yeah, we're in Madrid. We're based in Madrid. Yeah. So not as nice as probably where you are today, weather-wise, but a little bit cloudy, a little bit of rain yesterday, but no complaints.
Yeah, the last 2 days has been a bit wet down here, but I can't see a cloud out of that window, that tiny window. I think we're going to have a good day. It's going to be a good weekend. So. Good. Let's say a quick hello to anybody. Is there anybody on the live chat? It takes a little bit of a time for everybody to put a little message in there and let us know. Yes, let us know, everybody. Give us a little wave and a little message to tell us how you are this morning. Adam Farmerlow says, morning all. Time to sit down in class and get my mark before I go and clean the barbecue. Ready for this afternoon. It's obviously good weather where you are too. And Alicante Explorer, yes, morning everyone from you. Good to see you back on the live chat. Not seen your name for a couple of weeks, I think. Can't remember. Good to have you back anyway. I'll keep on checking the live chat as other people join in. And yes, so start asking your questions right now. There is a 23-second delay before they appear on the screen. And then there's a slight delay when my brain goes into gear and starts reading it. So while that's happening, Ciaran, tell us a bit about yourself and what you do for those people who've not seen you before on the show.
Yeah, cheers, Scott. So my name's Ciaran and I'm from Insure. Insure is an alliance of official international offices of the leading health insurance companies in Spain. And what we do is we offer visa compliant and residency permit compliant health insurance policies that of course meet the visa requirements, and that may mean the Spanish non-lucrative visa, the digital nomad visa, student visa, entrepreneur visa, and also the residency permits in Spain. So we offer various policies from different health insurance companies, and our clients come from all over the world, and we try to offer the best services with of course English speaking customer support. Any questions at all, as Scott's mentioned, let me know and I'd be happy to help. And I believe Scott has some questions for me too, so really looking forward to it.
Brilliant. Yes, I have a load of questions all lined up. The sort of questions that you get asked on a daily basis anyway. So that I've made sure that we can cover everything, even if nobody asks on the live chat, but I'm sure they will. And so this means that you're a broker rather than just working for one company. What difference does that make?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a little bit different to a brokerage because we're the official offices of these health insurance companies. So very similar to a brokerage. So we do represent different companies, although of course we have direct access to the systems, which makes it a little bit different. But we try and offer the best policy available and to suit each client. So that's why we're similar, but a little bit different.
That's great. Oh, by the way, watchers, if you want to get in touch with Ciaran for extra free advice after the show, or to start a policy, to talk about policies, ask any more questions, then there's a link in the video description below, right just below the video description. It's the first link. I'll also pin that to the top of the comments after the show because I couldn't do it before the show. It doesn't let me. And it's also at the very top of the live chat. I think it's the first live chat comment that came out. The link is there. So there we go. Let's say good morning to just S, it says. That's all you get of your name, S. And Donald Mackenzie is back on from Glenfarg in Perthshire, Scotland. And Susan McGee, good morning to you. Thank you for your time and help as always. Good to see your name there again. Jason's Webb, good morning. I just woke up. Good. So we're talking to you in bed. Very good. That image is now in everybody's head. So congratulations. Let's talk about private healthcare insurance then. Who needs private healthcare insurance in Spain and how do they qualify?
Yeah, so typically, of course, depends on each case. If you're moving to Spain on a Spanish visa, as I mentioned, maybe a non-lucrative visa or a digital nomad visa, student visa, or you're moving here on a residency permit, you may be required to have Spanish private health insurance. And of course, with Spanish private health insurance, the Spanish consulates or the foreign offices or the embassy or the police station might require different requirements of the health insurance policy. So it's always important to take that into account when you're moving to Spain. If you need private health insurance to ensure it qualifies and meets 100% of the visa or the residency requirements. So typically people moving to Spain on a visa or a residency permit, or also people in general, Spanish citizens included, may opt, if they have public healthcare, to go for the private health insurance as well, because there's various benefits of the private health insurance over the public and maybe vice versa. So typically these are the people who need private health insurance in Spain, although it does vary depending on each case.
Mm-hmm. Now, we covered everything about public healthcare last week, so if anyone needs lots of details about that, then check out that show. But very briefly, for anyone who didn't watch that, Ciaran, tell us who qualifies for free public healthcare.
Yeah, so typically who qualifies for public healthcare in Spain and has access to the public healthcare system are typically Spanish citizens. So people living in Spain, if you're Spanish or if you're a permanent resident here, or if you are contributing to the social security system. So if you're a freelancer in Spain or you're working here in Spain, you have a Spanish contract, you're paying Spanish taxes. That means typically, these are the most common ways of having access to the public healthcare system. There are, of course, different other ways of accessing the public healthcare system. But typically, if you're a permanent resident in Spain and you have a Spanish contract or you're a freelancer, you're paying your Spanish taxes, then you'll have access to the very good Spanish public healthcare system.
Yes, I can vouch for it. Just gone through it, as a lot of our viewers know. Gone through cancer and on the public health care because I am self-employed, obviously, in Spain. And I heard from Rochelle DeWitt. She's one of our frequent contributors and has been on the show quite a lot. She put through free healthcare for somebody who's on the withdrawal agreement and is now a permanent resident because they've been here had their TIE card for the full 5 years, become a permanent resident, and she confirmed just the other day that yes, it's possible to have free healthcare once you're a permanent resident with the withdrawal agreement as well, because of course that's only just happening now because it's 5 years since Brexit. So there you go. It's good to have that confirmed. Good morning to, who do we have that's just joined us? Russ Cam, Tony Silcock, good morning, Tony Brown, and Paul Bradley, good morning from Suki and Paul. Lovely to have you on the show. And I'll answer your question in a moment, Tony, that's just popped up. Talking about getting things for free, viewers may have noticed there's a QR code up in the corner. Sometimes I put up the GoFundMe QR code. Sometimes I put up the buymeacoffee.com one, and it's the buymeacoffee.com one that's there this morning. So if you've learned something new or will learn something new throughout this program, something of value to you today, or you've been entertained, that's also valuable. And then all you have to do is hover over that QR code to open a new tab and donate. And if everyone puts the cost of a cup of coffee or 3 into the pot, then the electricity keeps working here at YouTooSpain. And I keep smiling because I'm just pure electricity. So let's move on let's get Tony Brown's question, because this is important. Is Ciaran's company regulated and obligated to provide the best fit insurance policy?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we work, as I mentioned, with different Spanish health insurance companies, and we have various policies. And we provide, once you're applicable for a quote, we'll provide a quote from any of the health insurance policies. We'll provide all of the details, and then you can choose which policy best fits you. For example, one policy might have better or more doctors nearer to where you're based, or might have more access to an emergency centre. So we'll provide all quotes that are available to you, and then you get to decide on the policy. And of course, we help with any questions specific to each policy, and then you have the choice to choose which policy suits you best. There are cases, of course, maybe one of the policies might cover up to a certain age, or it might not be available due to maybe a pre-existing condition or other factors. But once you apply and can meet the requirements for that policy, we'll send all details and quotes available so you can choose. We always try to provide as much quotes as possible, so you have the ability to choose the best policy.
Brilliant. And is it your company that's regulated, or all of the other, or all the companies that you kind of work for that are regulated, or both?
Yeah, both of course. Yeah, we work with 3 or 4 of the biggest Spanish health insurance companies, and then of course we have our official offices. So that's really important. That allows us to provide the official policies from the official company. So of course, really important, especially if you're applying for a visa.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. Yogi is back on. Good morning, Scats. Hope you're doing well, buddy. I am, very much so. Hope you're doing well too. Are you on the treadmill this morning? It's not called a treadmill. It's the running machine. He's usually at the gym. Jason says, I'm a UK citizen under 67, but I'm on the non-lucrative visa between 60 and 65. Do I need private insurance for 5 years until I'm a Spanish permanent resident, I think he means, and then I can get the free one, or only get state free once I'm 67?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Of course, typically, as I mentioned, the Spanish visa requirement, especially for the non-lucrative visa, is to have private health insurance covering your stay in Spain. So typically, the NLV is a 5-year visa, so you need private health insurance for the 5 years. Although there are different ways around that. Of course, you can apply for your S1 form, or after 1 year, you can also opt in and to pay for the Spanish public healthcare system by the Convenio Especial. So it kind of just varies depending on different requirements. But typically for the Spanish visa, you need Spanish private health insurance that meets all of the requirements until you're no longer on the non-lucrative visa. But of course, you can check if you're applicable for the S1, or after 1 year, apply and pay into the public healthcare system as well. So you have a few different options there, but typically the requirement is to have the visa compliant private health insurance policy for your non-lucrative visa, and that goes the same for the other visas as well.
Yeah, check out Jason. I think you were listening last week anyway. You were on the, so I think we answered the question about the S1, about exactly when you can have it, when you can apply. And I think I've done a video about that before, but if there's anything else you need to know, then by all means ask. I think you have to be, basically you have to be eligible for the state pension in order to get the, in the UK, in order to be able to get the S1. Or it could be any European country, they've got the equivalent, the S1 equivalent. So yes, Mad David says good morning. Yogi says he's on the weight today, not on the running machine. And thanks for your donation once again, Yogi. That's very kind of you. Let's see. With his comment is, with UK citizens changing the way they come to Spain post-Brexit, i.e. the 90 or 180-day rule, are there short-term healthcare insurance offerings? Well, that's interesting, because I was just about to ask what is the difference between healthcare insurance and travel insurance, and there's also the European Health Insurance Card, or the GHIC. Do you still need travel insurance when you first arrive in Spain on a visa? And also, how long does the travel insurance last? Because some companies only let you do it for like 30 days or something like that. So there's a lot of different questions in there. Take it away, Ciaran.
Yeah, well, so far really, really interesting and very useful questions. So thanks everyone for these. Regarding kind of short-term health insurance coverage, so typically if you're moving to Spain on a visa, as I mentioned, you'll need visa compliant insurance, and it must meet the requirements, which is typically what we offer. Although if you're coming to Spain for less than maybe 3 months, less than 6 months, if you're kind of coming for travels, regarding the 90-180 rule, typically you'll just need, or you can just opt for travel insurance, and that of course will cover your travels to Spain, whether it's to the north of Spain, south of Spain, Canary Islands. Your travel insurance will cover and help you with that. And then if you're in Spain more long term on a visa over the 3-6 month mark, you'll be able to go for a private health insurance policy, although you'll have to meet some requirements. Typically, as many Spanish policies, they might require an EHIC or a Spanish bank account, whereas for travel insurance it's a little bit easier to obtain. And typically air policies, although you can pay with any bank account, you don't need an EHIC or a Spanish address or a Spanish number. Typically they're longer term policies because they're the visa and residency compliant policies, but there are short term offerings, as I mentioned, travel insurance, and maybe also other health insurance policies that you can purchase for I suppose less than 1 year.
Great. So yes, so that there aren't short-term health insurance offerings for tourists, really. I mean, that's a tourist. That's definitely a tourist question. If you're following the 90-180-day rule, then you're a non-EU citizen, and yeah, there's no annual policy, but you can be covered. So travel insurance covers kind of emergencies, or well, any kind of treatment that you have to have. No, it's not kind of normal going to the doctor kind of treatment. You can't do that on travel insurance, I don't think. Or can you do that on the EHIC? Does it allow you to go for sort of routine stuff, or does it have to be emergency only?
Yeah, as far as kind of my knowledge goes regarding the GHIC and the European Health Insurance Card, typically it's for emergency cover. So if you're, I suppose, in Spain less than 183 days and an emergency comes up and you have your GHIC or your European Health Insurance Card, you can go regarding emergency treatments, but for routine checkups and such, you wouldn't be covered. So yeah, as you mentioned, the best case there typically would as you're a tourist would be to apply for the travel insurance and not the, I suppose, visa compliant health insurance policies that are more long term.
And you can actually get travel insurance for a year, can't you? So that doesn't limit you to kind of a 30-day policy.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, there's longer term, there's short and long term travel insurance as well, and I'm sure there's various companies that you can go for people in this case leaving. I think the UK or from other countries that there's travel insurance that will assist with that.
Great. Jason said, I thought the S1 was only for those 67. I think we answered that while you were just now anyway. And he says, yes, my question didn't post last week. And then he says, that's what I thought. So I think we've answered that. You just have to be eligible for pension, I think. We'll answer that question, Tony, momentarily. We've covered that question about travel insurance. Yes, I think we have. So if everyone on a visa needs healthcare insurance as part of their application, is there anything that stops people from getting cover if, for example, they've got a pre-existing condition?
Yeah, really good question again. So regarding this, certain factors, of course, unfortunately, can make a difference. Can make it difficult when you're getting a quote or trying to purchase a health insurance policy in Spain. One of these factors is pre-existing conditions. So if you have a pre-existing condition or different pre-existing conditions, of course, it may affect the quote. It may be an increased premium, or it also may be difficult to obtain a policy. Although the benefit here is that there's many different health insurance policies available in Spain, so different companies that you can reach out to, and then hopefully you'll be able to get a quote covering or including your pre-existing condition. So that's one factor. And then the second factor that, again, unfortunately makes it a little bit difficult is the age. So certain health insurance policies in Spain have an age limit. It might be 65, 70, 75, 80. It just depends. So if you're in that higher age bracket, unfortunately, it might be difficult. But I suppose how you can overcome that is, as I said, there's various different health insurance companies in Spain, and there may be policies specific for older clients as well. So if you can shop around, you'll be able to hopefully find a policy to overcome these obstacles in the Spanish private healthcare system, which is typical, I suppose, around the world. The older you are, and if you have more conditions, it makes it a little bit more difficult, unfortunately.
Yes, and sometimes more expensive until you get to the impossible stage as well. So, yeah, and we were talking before the show actually about the question that we talked about when you were on the show last time, all about pre-existing cancer conditions. And there was a message from Pedro Sanchez's government saying they were going to make sure that if your cancer condition was, if you've had the all clear more than 5 years ago, then supposedly insurance companies could not refuse you insurance cover. That's been written into law. And so what's been your experience of that, Ciaran, with the companies that you represent?
Yeah, as mentioned before, that's a great point. So typically, we had seen this information, although it has some effects on the different Spanish health insurance companies and also their policies. There are ways around it, I suppose, unfortunately. So regarding a pre-existing condition like cancer that maybe was 6-7 years ago, and you got the all clear, what the Spanish health insurance companies require, although it differs from each company, is that you provide the information on these conditions. And why that's important is, one, to see if you can receive cover, and two, to be able to determine a price. And also, what's really important is you don't want to not provide this information regarding a serious cancer diagnosis, for example, 6 or 7 years ago. If that was ever to come back and you never provided any information on this, then what you don't want to happen is the health insurance company not providing any cover for that. So what we always recommend is, and what you should do, is provide as much information as possible, and then you can see the coverage, the quote, And that just kind of can give you some, I suppose, some calmness that once your policy, 6 months into your policy or so, that if anything unfortunately was to come up, that you were all honest and all information was provided. So there's no kind of exclusions or no cover based on this. So although this information was passed, it's still always best to provide all information, and then the health insurance company can get a quote based on this, and you want to be as honest as possible for these reasons.
Absolutely, yes. And Donald McKenzie has a question which I think would be best covered by him getting directly into contact with you, because there are lots of questions that you will have to ask to answer the question, which is, can Ciaran help with a policy for an old man with pre-existing conditions? So there'll be questions like, well, that you get asked on any policy, which is how old you are and what are the conditions, and there'll be a lot of other things you need to cover. So get in touch with Ciaran on that one, Donald, and he'll be able to tell you directly for your circumstances. So if anybody else has a question like that, then yes, do get in touch with Ciaran. And his address, his contact or website, I think it is, the direct, is available underneath the video description. That's the word I'm looking for. And also it's at the top of the live chat, and it will be pinned as the top comment underneath the video after the show is finished, once I can get access to that. So yes, we'll answer. Oh yes, can anyone be refused cover for any other reason than pre-existing conditions, first of all?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, pre-existing conditions, of course, and also age. There might be a policy that only covers up to 70 years of age, or up to 75. So if you're applying and you're 76 with that policy, of course, you wouldn't be able to get cover. Typically, pre-existing conditions and age are, I suppose, the common reasons for not being able to obtain cover. But not to fear, as I've said, there's plenty of companies and policies out there. And as you mentioned, Scott, people can get into contact with me with their specific questions or queries regarding any of those two, and we'd be happy to help as well. So yeah, typically pre-existing conditions and age are factors that kind of have an effect in obtaining cover.
Great stuff. And here's a good question from Tony Brown, which I'll answer briefly, and then you can give me the more detailed answer. What would be the typical estimated cost for a 55-year-old with no health conditions on a non-lucrative visa? And my answer to that briefly is there is no typical estimated cost for anybody, because it's all very individual. But Ciaran, what's your view on that?
Yeah. Another important question, of course, because cost is really important when you're making a move to a new country. So the estimated cost, as you've, great question here, because you put estimated cost, of course it may vary, but it would be between 1,500 and 2,000 euro for 1 year. That's the estimated cost. Of course, this is a full visa compliant policy with full coverage, with no coverage limit, no co-payments, no deductibles, no waiting periods, and repatriation included as well. So that's an estimated cost. Just so if you're kind of looking for kind of ballpark figure, it would be around 1,500 to 2,000 euro for 1 year.
There we go. So there is a ballpark figure, but not necessarily a typical thin band amount there. Good. Excuse me. Alan Bates says, hi guys, sorry a bit late this morning. This is Alan from Los Alcazares in the Murcia region. Great to have you on the live chat. Just a quick plug before we go on for some other friends. Yes, before we continue, I'm going to put up their details on the screen just for a moment. It is under the QR code. There we go. I'll put them on the bottom of the screen for you now. Currency exchange. I always talk about this. I've told you all of the brilliant advantages so many times on this show. So all I'm going to say today is this: use smart currency exchange. But don't just do that. Use the link in the comments below, and it's also in the video description or you can hover over that QR code. I can't even point at it because my hands are all going backwards. And if you use that link, as well as getting a free account and free advice from your own lovely personal broker, you'll actually be helping YouTooSpain as well. And that won't cost you anything extra. There's no extra cost for that, no extra charge. It's a win-win-win with a cherry on top. So yes, do that. And it's very important, but as you may have seen, the exchange rates over the last couple of days since the tariff announcements from America, the exchange rate between the pound and the euro has taken a dive from nearly 1.2 down to 1.17 up to the weekend. So that just shows you that you can lose quite a large amount. So if you were going to buy a house, for example, and you didn't lock in a rate, which you can do with Smart, then the money in euros that you would have at the end of it would be an awful lot less. So you'd end up paying more for a house. So sorry if that's happened to you. And yeah, get yourself an account. There's no obligation. Even if you get an account, you don't have to do anything with it straight away. There you go. So back to the questions, and one of those is, can you choose when your cover starts? What advice can you give us about that?
Yeah, this is a really good question. So typically with our policies, you can have a future start date. So for some context, if you're applying for your Spanish visa at the consulate in May 2025, and of course it takes some time for your visa hopefully to be approved, and for you to then move to Spain, and then maybe a couple of months after. So if your start date is the 1st of April for your appointment, but you're going to move to Spain maybe in June or July, with us you can have a start date in June and July, and within 3 working days of purchase you'll receive your health insurance documents, and these are the documents you'll use for your visa appointment or your residency appointment, and then once your visa is approved, you then have the later start date. And why this is really important is you're not paying for a Spanish private health insurance policy while you're still in the UK or the US or in Australia or any other country. So you can have it started. Of course, it does depend on the company. Different companies have different rules, especially with the policies as well. But typically you can have a start date in the future when you'll actually arrive in Spain, although you'll have paid for and have all of your documents for any legal reasons, such as the consulate appointment. So that's really important to know and save you a few bob as well in the meantime. So that's
can
really
you
important.
change that date as you go along in case there's a problem, delay in getting your visa? Can you push it a little bit further back, or if there's problems with your travel that you have to change your travel date?
Yeah, that's a really common question that gets asked a lot, because of course in Spain there may be there might be an issue, or it might be delayed for any reason. So once your policy hasn't started yet and you notify us within 3 to 5 working days before your original start date, you'll be able to change your start date to maybe push it back a month or two, or pull it forward a month or two. You just have to notify us a couple of days before the original start date. And another reason why that's important is if there are some delays and you won't make it to Spain by the 1st of June or July, that you can push it back and you're not paying for and using Spanish health insurance while you're not in Spain and you're still in your home country. So that's it.
I seem to remember that back in the day, I should say back in the day, only like 3 or 4 years ago, when I first started talking about health insurance, that there was less leeway with, you had to kind of start a policy. I seem to remember that you had to start it straight away, and you had to have it in line and ready at your visa appointment date, and it had to start then. So some companies were doing 15-month policies, which covered the 3 month between you having your visa appointment and you arriving in Spain. But there seems to be a lot more malleability, is that the word, to move the date now, which is good.
Yeah, I suppose more flexibility, of course, as I said.
Flexibility, that's the word.
It depends on the policy, the company, and also it may depend on the consulate. So maybe if your legal advisor is I suppose if they're providing any other information, it's of course best to listen to them. But typically with us, your policy can have a future start date, which allows that little bit more flexibility, which is always nice.
Brilliant, yes. And it's best for it to start on the start date of your visa, which is kind of the day it gets stamped as you go over the border, because then it's in line for your renewal when you do your year two, and renew your policy. Then it fits in with the 12 months that you need in order to get your next your visa renewal. So that is very handy. Oh, good morning to Chris from upstate to Spain. He's a bit late on today. And yes, you know Chris very well, don't you, Ciaran?
Yeah, I do indeed. Morning, Chris. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're
Lovely.
well.
The next question is related to the last one. Is how long should your insurance cover?
Really good question again. So typically the visa requirements and for our policies as well, because they're visa residency compliant policies. The health insurance policy typically should be paid up front for at least 1 year. And then when you go for your renewal, if you're really enjoying your time in Spain and you want to renew for an extra year, you can then just renew again for 1 year until you no longer need or you no longer want your private health insurance policy. But typically it must be paid upfront for 1 year. And then you may be requested, well, of course, you'll have to show your certificate showing your coverage dates, that it's for 1 year, because it is a 1 year visa. And then you may also be requested a payment receipt from some consulates showing, or the payment invoice showing that it was paid up front and the amount. So that may be requested as well. So typically for 1 year paid up front.
Yes, but on the renewal, which is on the non-lucrative visa, is for 2 years. You don't need a 2-year policy, do you? You just need the 1 year.
Correct, exactly. So of course it's a 1 year visa, and then for your renewal it's the second and third year. Although thankfully you don't need to pay for the 2 years. You can just pay for 1 year and then just renew annually, which is really nice as well. And just to add on that as well, which is another common question that's really important, is if your visa's rejected for any reason, and they'll provide you with a letter or a certificate of rejection stamped with the details. Once you send us that letter of rejection, we can then cancel your policy and provide a refund. So all unused months will be refunded. So that's something that's important to note as well. So if your visa is rejected, unfortunately, and you can't move to Spain, you won't be paying for a Spanish private health insurance policy, and you'll be able to be refunded, which is nice.
Brilliant. I was going to ask that question in a moment or two, so thanks for covering that one. Can the period of the insurance, you might have answered this one already, but can the period of the insurance be changed or cancelled or extended?
Yeah, so for example, we had a client recently that to match up with their visa needed to add on 6 months. So we were able to confirm that and then have the policy extended by 6 months, and then the updated documents sent. So depending on each case, of course, but typically you can extend if needed. It might need to match up the dates for your visa or any extension. So we can extend your insurance. As I mentioned, we can also change the coverage date once you let us know, at least typically at least 3 working days before the start date. We can change the coverage dates, and then also if your visa is rejected and you aren't going to move to Spain, we can also cancel the insurance and provide a refund. So have that little bit of flexibility as well regarding extensions and changing the coverage dates as well. So always good to know.
Brilliant. Let's talk about deductibles. I keep forgetting what deductibles are all about. It's mentioned on policies, so tell us about those.
Yeah, so a deductible is the amount a policy holder is going to pay toward a covered service. So anything that's included in their policy, but they're going to pay for it before the insurance company starts to pay and starts to provide cover. And a benefit of our policies and visa compliant policies is there are no deductibles, which is one of the visa requirements. So your health insurance policy, of course, you want to ensure it meets 100% of the requirements, and of course it has no deductibles, so it'll have full coverage. So anything that's covered within the policy, you don't have to pay for it, and it'll be covered by the health insurance policy, which is nice to know.
Brilliant. So no deductibles and no pre-existing conditions. That is good to know. There's also something called a waiting period. Does that mean your insurance doesn't start straight away, or I think it's something else, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's the same thing again. Waiting periods are really important. So to provide some clarity, typically in Spain for Spanish residents, Spanish, I suppose, more Spanish citizens, typically health insurance policies have waiting periods. Although with visa compliant policies, they're more specialized policies. So in that case, the policies for your visa, the policies we offer, they don't have any waiting periods. And what a waiting period is it's the amount of time before a service can be covered. So for example, you may have a 1-year policy, but hospitalizations have a 6-month waiting period. So that means that for 6 months while you're a policy holder, you won't be able to go for hospitalizations or emergencies. And then after the 6 or 8 months, these are then covered. So it's a wait period before you can go for a covered service. As I said, thankfully, our private health insurance policies and visa compliant policies cannot have any waiting periods. So it's always best when you're shopping around, when you're looking for a policy, to ensure it has no waiting periods. And once your policy starts, you have access to the full policy, which is really, really, really important, because if not, it may have an effect on your visa if there's any waiting periods.
Great. Well, there's also co-payments as well. Is that the same as one of the other things you've just talked about?
Yeah, it's similar. So a co-payment is, for example, when you go to a doctor's, or if you go to an emergency section, half might be covered by the health insurance company, or maybe more than half, 60-70% is covered. But then you have to pay maybe 30 or 40% of a co-payment. So you're paying a little bit towards your appointment or your treatment. Although similar with deductibles and waiting periods, our policies don't have co-payments, and if a policy has co-payments, it won't meet the visa requirement. So another really important requirement to take into account. And typically, as I mentioned, with these policies, there's no co-payment, so it's full coverage. You just go, and once you visit a center that works with your company, you just show them your card and you don't pay, which is great.
Right, so my next question is, I don't know why I'm asking this, because the answer sounds like yes to me. Can you buy insurance if you currently live in Spain?
Yeah. So you can purchase, with our policies, you can purchase policies from anywhere in the world. And benefit of that is you can pay with any bank account. So it doesn't need to be a Spanish bank account. You don't need a Spanish number, an address, anything like that. And then, of course, if you're in Spain, you can purchase air policies or Spanish health insurance policies as well. So yeah, anywhere in the world or Spain, you can purchase an insurance policy.
Right. And what does a healthcare policy cover? Is dental included, for example?
Yeah, so typically our policies, the visa compliant policies, they're full coverage. So that's hospitalizations, surgeries, inpatient and outpatient, GP visits, specialist visits, which of course include a dermatologist or a psychiatrist, a physiotherapist. These are all covered. Regarding dental as well, typically with Spanish health insurance policies, some dental coverage is included. So that means any dental checkups. So you can go to a dental clinic, and of course that's covered and included. Sometimes like simple extractions, they're covered, and a once a year dental clean is covered as well. So that dental is included in this kind of, I suppose, more basic dental coverage is included in the health insurance policies, is really important. So typically full coverage, that that's for hospitalizations, emergencies, surgeries, for GP visits and specialist visits, and then other tests, of course, covered as well, and then some dental. One thing that's actually not covered that typically is a common question, probably more so from the US, clients from our US, so vision. So if you need to visit an optician, you need glasses or you need contact lenses, that's separate in Spain. So that's not included. So that's really important as well.
Brilliant. Donald Mackenzie is saying, I missed a couple of minutes just now, so apologies if I'm asking what has already been covered. I don't think it has. If I have an S, presumably he means an S1, what are the situations or circumstances where an insurance policy would be helpful? Yeah, so the question basically is, why would you want to have private healthcare if you've already got some kind of public?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question, Donald. And I kind of mentioned this at the start. So, for example, Spanish citizens, so Spanish nationals with passports, of course, typically they'll have access to their, of course, public healthcare system. But predominantly in Spain, they'll also opt for private healthcare as well. So it would be the same for you if you have an S1, you have access to the public healthcare system, which is great. So you don't require to pay and to have an additional private health insurance policy. But why a lot of people do is, first and foremost, the Spanish public healthcare system, as I've used it, and so has SCATS, is phenomenal. It's one of the best in the world. It's really, really good. Of course, it may depend on where you are, and of course, people are always going to have different opinions as well. But from my side, it's been amazing, and it's kind of ranked very high in the world. So that's really, really good. Why people would then opt for private health insurance as well is, first, for more choice. So if I have a sore throat, I'll need to go to my public healthcare GP, and then they'll, if they see fit, they'll recommend me to a throat doctor, and that throat doctor appointment may be in 3 or 4 months. Maybe sooner, maybe longer. It depends on where you are, of course. Although with private health insurance, if you have a sore throat, you just go directly to a throat doctor. So if you need to see a specialist, you can go directly to a specialist, and you may have various, depending on where you are in Spain, you may have various specialists to choose from. So you might have, I'm currently based in Madrid. If I'm looking for a throat specialist, there might be over 20, over 25 in a close radius. So that's why it's a big benefit of being able to have that choice to go, one, directly to specialists, and then being able to choose different specialists as well. That's one really important factor, and probably the most common. The second is you have more access to English speaking doctors. As I mentioned, typically with the public, you'll just have your own assigned GP you'll have to go register with, and that will be your GP. Although with private healthcare, there's mainly hospital centres and clinics that the health insurance companies work with, so you have more of a chance of being able to be seen and assisted with in English. So that's really important. And there's many other benefits, but another benefit is when you have a private health insurance policy, typically the company, depending on the service or the company as well, they'll have a support line, in English speaking, customer support line or customer service that can assist you. So these are some of the benefits of why you would opt for both. Of course, it depends on different circumstances, but the public healthcare system is amazing. And then the private just gives you that, I suppose, peace of mind in terms of coverage with different specialists directly, being able to choose different specialists, more English speaking doctors, and also kind of more support as well. So that's just some of the benefits as well.
That's true. I've had kind of mixed experience of language speaking on the public system. I'm most of the time now I get phone calls for my appointments, and I get them, they come through to me and they speak English because I think it's all on my notes now. that they may have had some problems communicating with me in Spanish. Normally because they call me like 8:30 in the morning when I'm only just awake. So I'm just kind of mumbling my way through, and my brain isn't awake at that point before I have my cup of coffee in the morning. So that's been helpful to me. So yeah, mixed experience. And I've been told off by some surgeons. Why don't you speak Spanish by now? You've been here for over 3 years, and they speak perfect English when they're telling me off. And I say, well, look, I don't know all of the medical terminology for everything. Certainly not in Spanish. I can't answer the complicated questions. And also, I've been on chemo. My brain is full of nasty chemicals running around, and there is such a thing called chemo fog that stops you. It actually makes you forget some of the important words in Spanish, some of the basic words in Spanish. It's happened to me. Also, I should mention my wife Liz's experience recently. She's got a pain in her hip. She went to she asked the private people. I think she phoned up one of the local private hospitals, and they said she'd need they called it a prescription from her doctor at the health centre locally, so that the doctor can tell with a note, they can tell the private people that she does actually need to have, say, an X-ray, a scan, something like that. And so she needed that before she could go and organise to get a scan. So is that something you've experienced as well?
Yeah, so there can be, you mean like an overlap between the public and the private?
Yeah, so she couldn't have gone directly to the hospital and said, I want an X-ray now, or I want a scan. And they said, you need to have the note from your doctor that you actually need one.
Yeah, exactly. So typically we're private insurance anyway, and you can't just go and get an MRI scan and that's covered. There is a little bit of a process. So typically you might, for example, go to a cardiologist and for a checkup, and the cardiologist might say that you might need an MRI. So he'll write a prescription for an MRI. And then once you have this and it's authorized by the insurance company, you'll then go and complete the MRI. So you can't always just go directly for an MRI, which in a way, of course, makes sense, because everyone might just go for
Yeah.
MRIs, and some people might need it more than others. So sometimes there's processes like this for certain treatments. So for example, if I have a really sore leg, I'm not a doctor, so I won't know. So what you'll do is you'll go to a traumatologist, and they'll say, oh, your leg's fine, you need some medication. Or they might say, you'll need some physiotherapy. And then same thing, he'll write a prescription for the physiotherapy. And then you'll then go and have the physio done. But you do need that, I suppose, prescription. And why that is, same thing, one person might really need physio, and then one person might just have, a cramp. So that's kind of why they have that process. And then sometimes, to go back to Donald's question, there's an overlap between the public and the private, and you can use both. And a quick story, actually, very recently, based on my own personal experience. So I was in Alicante. I'm not from Alicante, and I had a really serious injury in my foot, and I had to go to the emergency hospital. It was a Saturday, and there's actually nobody in the hospital, so I was actually seen to very quick. That was amazing. That was a private hospital with the private insurance. And then once I came back home to Madrid, they told me I needed to see a nurse constantly to treat the wound. And I just went to my local GP because it was the closest, and they were just able to treat it. They were just basically wrapping up the wound. So that's another benefit, kind of similar to kind of the overlap in public and private, like you mentioned as well, Scott. So
And it's
nice.
interesting. My experience was it took me 10 months to get an appointment through for a colonoscopy, mainly because the blood tests didn't show that I had cancer markers. So the doctor was saying, no, it's definitely not cancer. So I wasn't put towards the top of the queue. So it took longer for it to come through. And I wish now that I'd gone private just for that. But it's also worth knowing, I would have got a much quicker appointment and found out quicker and got onto the system a lot quicker. And of course, I'd have gone back into the public healthcare system with my private scan, my private colonoscopy results. And so, there's that crossover there. There was something else I was going to say, but I've forgotten. There we go. But I think that just shows that's a very good question, Donald, and I think we've covered that extensively. Very good. And thank you so much, Barry from Unitech, for that generous donation. If anyone else wants to do that kind of donation, there's a little dollar sign down on the screen, I think underneath the screen at that side, that you can go to for those ones. Or of course you can do the buy me a coffee thing, which takes you off to a separate site without losing your connection to this video, by the way, so you can do it now without stopping listening. And Barry says he's listening but still DIYing. Very good. Hope it's going all right for you. And Kate has a very good question. Are the requirements, for example, no co-payments, the same for EU citizens seeking residency as it is for when you're getting a visa, like the non-lucrative?
Yeah, great question, Kate. So typically, they're very similar. So if you're applying for a visa or you're also applying as an EU resident, although it does depend on each situation. For example, if you're an EU citizen working here in Spain, you may not need private health insurance because you'll be working, you'll have the public healthcare access. So of course it does vary, which of course is really important to note. But typically, if you're required to have private health insurance, it will be similar in terms of full coverage, no co-payments, no waiting periods, no deductibles. So the policies we offer are full coverage, and they meet all of their requirements as well. So that goes for the EU residency and also for a visa. So very, very similar requirements. They may have some very small differences. For example, maybe repatriation isn't included or required, but typically they're very similar requirements, and the policy you'll use will be very similar to a visa compliant policy.
Very good. Yes, I remembered what I was going to say before. It's to do with the cost of going to a private. If you've not got private healthcare like I haven't, it wouldn't have cost me a great deal of money to go and get the colonoscopy there. I mean, I don't know, it's something like €100, which will surprise people from the United States, for example, who would have to pay possibly thousands just for a colonoscopy. And so, it's not, it's a lot cheaper here in Spain just to go for some kind of test like that. Obviously an MRI is more expensive because it's a more detailed thing, and it's more costly to run the machine. But yes, Jason has a question. What's the limit amount for operations, or does it depend on level of cover? Yeah, is there a limit on the amount that you have to, that your insurance company would have to pay out, basically?
Yeah, really good question, Jason. It does depend on like a lot of the questions. I don't want to be saying this too much, but of course it is relevant. So it does depend on the insurance company, and also, excuse me, it depends on the policy as well. Although typically with air policies, it's full coverage with no coverage limit. So it's unlimited financial coverage. Some policies might have a coverage limit of 500,000 or 300,000, depending. But air policies have an unlimited financial coverage, which is important to know. But other policies might have, as I said, coverage limit of 300,000 or 500,000. And then to also link it back to if you're applying for a visa or any visa from anywhere to move to Spain, you want to ensure that the policy meets the requirements, because depending on each consulate, of course there's multiple in the US and the UK, Australia, the policy might have a coverage requirement. So it's always important to check that as well. But yeah, for heirs, it's there's no limit for the operations and the cover. It's unlimited financial coverage. So
brilliant. That's good to know. Now we've reached the hour mark, and I don't want this to go on for a huge length of time more. I like to keep it not too long after the hour, but there are still quite a number of questions to get through. So what we'll do is we'll try and scoot through them as quickly as possible. And here we go. We're going to talk about the insurance card. You told me about this on the last show. So you do an insurance card. Just tell us briefly about that and how many days it takes to arrive, and is there a digital version?
Yeah, so once your policy starts, you'll have access to your insurance card. Of course, in many circumstances, it depends, because people might still be looking for a permanent address. But once you have a permanent address or somewhere to send the card, we'll send the card to you, and it normally arrives within 2 to 3 weeks. Well, of course, that's really important. But if you don't have a permanent address, and what you can do is you can have a digital version of the card. So that might be a insurance kind of PDF of the card, or else through the insurance company app, you'll be able to have the insurance card. And why that's important: once you have your insurance card, the digital, virtual, or the physical card, you just go to any center working with that insurance company, and you'll be covered, and you won't pay anything. You'll just show them your ID and your card, and you'll be seen to, and you won't pay for anything else. So that's really important to know as well. You do have the digital and virtual versions available as well.
Brilliant. El Davido, good morning to you. He confirms it is a lot cheaper here. I've got an MRI scan this Tuesday and I'm going private. Only 199 euros. That's remarkable. I thought it was going to be in the thousands. Same in the UK is almost 800. That would be 800 pounds as well, which is getting on for 900 euros. So yeah, and in the US, well, it would cost you that just to get an ambulance to take you there and have it done. And then goodness knows how much an MRI scan. If any of our US watchers are watching, then tell us in the comments below. I don't suppose you'll be up and watching this show right now. I don't know. It's going to be about 6 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast, and some horrendous time in the morning on the West Coast by now. So there we go. This is an interesting point. So I'm told that different health centres and doctors use different insurance companies. So if that's true, how can people make sure they're moving to a place where they can reach the right health centre or hospital easily? Do you have lists for the whole of Spain? And is this something you need to sort out before you find out exactly where you're going to live? So you need to have it sort of in conjunction with your house search?
Yeah, really, really, really important. So, of course, private insurance is massively important for you for many different reasons. So when you're shopping around and you're looking for a policy, of course, there's many different factors that need to be taken into account. But one of the most important is ensuring that where you're going to live has centres, hospitals, or clinics that work with your health insurance company. So if you're, for example, looking to move to Alicante, and you're looking for a private policy and you're shopping around, you want to make sure that the policy you purchase has many centres available to you in Alicante. So you can, for example, there's an emergency hospital there, or if you like to see cardiologists regularly, for example, that there's a cardiologist available and near to you. So that's really important. Typically in Spain, the health insurance companies, they will have doctors, centers and clinics, a medical network that they'll work within. And so what happens, like I said before, you visit a center or a clinic within that medical network, you show your insurance card and maybe your ID, depending on the situation, and you'll be seen to and you won't pay. So you must visit centers within the medical network. That's really important. And as mentioned, when you're shopping around, you're looking for a policy, you want to ensure that the policy that you're looking for or that you've purchased has available centers and clinics near to you. So that's really, really important when you're shopping for a policy, and when you're before moving, that you're aware of the medical network available to you. Although, just the last point to add on that, the policies we do have a national full medical network. So it means they have one of the biggest medical networks in Spain. So what that means is you're not just covered in Alicante, Malaga and Madrid and Barcelona, you're covered in the Balearic Islands, Canary Islands and the north of Spain as well. So all around Spain you have coverage, which is important. So if you're on a holiday, or if you're traveling to see friends or family, that you're covered as well within Spain. So really important.
Yes, and you've got lists for the whole of Spain for each individual company, so that you can advise people. It's really important, I think, in advance, especially if you're doing a house search. And of course, a lot of people rent in one place while they're looking for a place to live, to get a long-term rental. And so you have to know in advance where how far away you are from the location where you want to live. So location, so important for where you want to live. But if you're out in the campo, in the countryside, it could be that the ambulance could take quite a while to get to you, and you might be on a very difficult farm track or something. So it's important to know that these things could be vital for you. When I know I was at a friend's house and I was taken ill, my wife had to drive me to the local hospital, which took about half an hour to get to, because the ambulance, well, they didn't have coverage on the phone really to phone the ambulance in the first place, and also the ambulance couldn't have got down the track and turned around and got back up again. So my wife had to drive me all the way there. And so it's things like that you need to be aware of. So it is important to be near transport links, be near if you've not got a hospital right next to you, if you're not in a city or next to a big town, then you need to think about where the nearest hospital is. And of course, you check those lists through Ciaran.
Yeah, just to add on that last point, sorry, Scott, we have, of course, the national list, but we also have the list specific to the different autonomous communities or areas as well. So, and you can narrow it down to your smaller town as well. So you can check them, and of course you can check that. Should be able to check that with any Spanish insurance company.
Brilliant. Donald's signing off now. Yes, thanks very much for watching Donald. Up to there. If you want to watch any more of the show, of course, you can watch the video back afterwards. And there will be time codes and chapter headings and everything, so you can scroll through to the point where you left us now, which is 1 hour and 8 minutes in. So you can scroll to there and watch from then on. There you go. And great helpful advice. Thank you, says Jason. And so zipping through the last, I think it's about 5 more questions. When you see a doctor at a local hospital, would you pay for medical expenses in advance, then claim it back, or is it all done by the insurance company?
Yeah, so it's all done by the insurance company. You visit a centre within the network that works with your company. You show your insurance card and your ID if necessary. Sometimes they don't request your ID, sometimes they do. And the billing is done by the insurance company. So you don't pay. You just show them your card, and it's covered and included as well. So there's no invoicing needed to be done by you, so you can get treated and then you can be on your way.
Brilliant. Nice snappy answer. Brilliant. What about prescriptions? Are they covered?
Yeah, so unfortunately prescriptions or medications aren't typically they're very seldomly covered in Spain, although they are a lot cheaper. I think we spoke about this last time, and some of your viewers were providing their own information, which was really nice. So the medications are a lot cheaper. Unfortunately, they're not covered in Spain, but you'll visit a doctor. They'll write you a prescription. So if anyone is looking how the process works, you go to a doctor, they'll write a prescription, you go to the pharmacy, and then you pay for your medications. And some companies, they might offer some reimbursements, but they're very rarely covered, but they are a lot cheaper.
Yeah, it's worth knowing that if you're on the public system, if you get given medication in the hospital, or you get your prescription to take down to the pharmacy in the hospital, that will be free. It's only the ones that you take out to the pharmacy is outside where you'd pay, but like Ciaran said, very, very low cost to get your prescriptions. I have to do it for my ostomy bag. I've got to go on a regular basis and get the supply of bags and all of the different things that you need around that. But not everything that I need in order to work with this and look after the bag is provided on prescription. So there's the various cleaning wipes and things like that, and the mat that I have to lay on the ground, which is like the ones you put on hospital beds underneath you so that you don't pee on the sheets. Those kind of things, you can't get a prescription for those, so I have to just pay for them at the pharmacy, and those are the most expensive things really, although they're not that expensive. But my prescriptions, there's also a cap on the amount that you can pay per month for prescriptions, and it's a very low cap. I'm not sure what it is, but I've never paid very much. There you go, that's worth knowing. And is there some kind of visa insurance, and who can buy that? That's interesting.
Yeah, so the visa insurance is as I mentioned, the policies we offer. I mentioned how typically in Spain policies will have waiting periods, but the specific visa insurance doesn't have any waiting periods, no co-payments, no deductibles. So anyone moving to Spain on a visa, they'll need the visa compliant insurance rather than the normal Spanish health insurance. So that's really important to note, of course. So there's different policies, but you'll need the visa compliant policy or the residency permit compliant policy if you're applying for a visa or for example, you're applying as an EU citizen. You'll need the appropriate health insurance that might differ from a generic Spanish private insurance policy.
Brilliant. Yes, I wasn't sure why I was asking that question, because it sounded like it's one I asked last time, and I couldn't remember why, but I thought that visa insurance was you're insuring your visa rather than insuring your health. I couldn't work out there. There we go, but you've answered that one now. I think you've answered these final two questions. Do you need an address in Spain to get insurance? And I think the answer is not necessarily.
Yeah, so you don't need an address in Spain to purchase our policies. Then once you have an address or somewhere to send the cards to, once your physical cards are available, we'll have them posted to your address. But when you're purchasing or in the purchasing process and after, you don't need a Spanish address, which is useful to know as well, of course.
Yes, and the final question, do you need a Spanish bank account? Which I think you answered about 3/4 of an hour ago, but tell us now.
Yeah, so no need for a Spanish bank account. You can pay with any debit or credit card, which is very nice to know that you don't, like a lot of Spanish insurance companies require a Spanish bank account, but you don't need an address, a bank account, an EA number, or a phone number, which sometimes people ask. So.
Yes, the NIE, by the way, you mentioned it very early on in the show. That's the NIE number, in case people didn't know. It's just the way that the Spanish call it. NIE and the TA, they call that for the card, the TIE. So there we go. Jason said, that's too much information. I'm eating my breakfast. Yeah. Sorry, I keep on giving information about my ostomy. Yeah. I thought ostomy. That's if I'd said the word that I call it at home, it would have been even worse. Trust me. There we go. So, are there any more live chat questions? It takes, as I said earlier, 23 seconds delay before they can actually come through. So get your final questions down there in the live chat. While we're waiting for those to appear, Ciaran, do you have any final tips for us? Anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, just one thing I'd like to add, because typically people, they might not have any questions now, or they might have a specific question, and maybe this evening something will come to mind. So if anyone has, as you mentioned as well, Scott, any specific questions, I would be, myself and my team would be absolutely happy to help. So you can reach out to us via the link, and you can contact me. We have our various email numbers there. We have WhatsApp. We have telephone numbers as well. So any questions at all, let us know. And of course, we'd be happy to help and provide as much information as possible.
Brilliant. I've just dropped the link again in the live chat there. It's at the very top of the live chat. Now it's at the very bottom of the live chat as well. So everybody watching afterwards, I think, can access it through there as well. So I can't see any questions coming in. I think we have covered absolutely everything anyway. Of course, if you need any more answers, then you can ask in the comments, or just get in contact with Ciaran. He'll be happy to chat to you. And that is all that we have time for this week. Click on the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll tell you in a moment who your special guest will be next week. But first, let's give Ciaran a big virtual kiss and a hug and say goodbye for now. It's been an absolute pleasure, and hopefully we'll see you again in the not too distant future.
Pleasure. Thanks, Scott, and thanks everyone for taking the time to join today. I really appreciate it, and hope I provided some useful information, and hopefully see you again soon.
Brilliant. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.
Now, wasn't that wonderful and helpful? Of course it was. So who do I have on the show next week? Well, of course, it's my regular fortnightly guest, Chris from Upsticks, and we will answer all of your questions about absolutely everything. But the main feature next week, which we'll announce on the Facebook page and group during the week, it'll also be announced on Chris's live broadcast, which is on Thursday evenings, I think, at 6 o'clock Spanish time. That's 5 o'clock in the UK, on his YouTube channel, Upsticks. So yes, that will all be announced, but it's almost guaranteed to be something about the new residency rules that begin on May 20th, because we only have 3 or 4 shows left together in advance of that happening. So, and we've got a lot to cover there. So yes, of course, we'll have our regular Ask Us Anything feature and frequently asked questions segments, plus the very popular argument about something important or hilarious or both. We didn't get round to it on the last show because there was so much detail and so many questions going on that we didn't get round to it. So I'll surprise Chris once again with the topic that we're going to cover there. It's a fun one. So, as I say, you can ask questions in advance on the Facebook page or group and you will be answered. Make sure you like and follow the page and group. It's worth being part of them both. So, let's just check the live chat. We're just getting the final, nice, some final emojis from Jason. You can all see those. Yes, thanks for the comments and everything on the live chat. Thanks for hitting the like button and supporting us with donations and memberships as well. It's all very much appreciated. I'll see you either on the midweek video at 6 o'clock Spanish time on Wednesdays, or live next Saturday morning at 10 o'clock Spanish time. That's 9 o'clock in the morning in the UK and Portugal, and one day in the future the UK and Spain may be realigned as they are geographically when if and when they change daylight savings time and get rid of all of that. Anyway, that's something I did a video on a few weeks ago. Look out for the YouTube shorts, which can appear anytime. I try and put one out on Fridays. I didn't do one yesterday. But that's all for this week. Someone pass around the healthcare insurance policy cookies. Peace and love to you all. Peas and fluff. And here's one final message from all of the voices in my head here at YouTooSpain. Ta-ra. Wave goodbye, lads. Bye. Goodbye. Toodaloo. Peace and love. Peas and fluff. Oi, oi. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. One more cosmic dance? All right, then. Look, Mum, I'm dancing. Oh, I'm all a quiver. Let's dance.